So a game was finally announced for the Nintendo Switch, for a Nintendo platform, for the Nintendo family of consoles, after 26 years. It's been that long. This game has finally been approved for Nintendo systems, despite Nintendo saying it'll never come to our platform at all, ever. It's finally happening this summer. Now, if you don't know about the history of Night Trap, I'm going to catch up on why this is actually kind of a big deal for Nintendo to approve this. This could even show some changes from Nintendo if you really think about the, I guess, things going on behind the scenes with some of their more recent moves. And it's a very interesting move here to see this happen. Now, of course, the game I'm talking about, if you don't already know, is Night Trap. And it has a very weird history. Seriously. This history goes all the way back to before the ESRB, before the ratings board was created for games in general. This, along with Mortal Kombat, Night Trap, Mortal Kombat, are the reasons you have ratings on your games today. So Night Trap originally came out back in the early 90s, 1992, and it was a full motion video, an FMV game. What does that mean? Well, that means that you are going to be watching most of the game, making decisions, or sometimes they even had like shooters, like I think Mad Dog, where you would actually have a cursor or reticule on screen and you would kind of move it around. They had like Jurassic Park, where you would technically walk around in frames. Seriously, it would be like 2 frames a second or something. But they would basically have actual filming done with real actors, kind of digitize them at a very low resolution because we were dealing with the Sega Genesis, which was a 16-bit system, so you can imagine it couldn't display these well at a very high resolution at all, so everything kind of looked kind of grainy and pixelated, but the Sega CD at least helped it along, and that's how you got Night Trap, where you were a special agent who was watching kidnapped girls, or girls that could be kidnapped by ninja vampires who couldn't quite bite through their necks, so they used these mechanisms that would capture them. It was a weird game. So essentially you would jump around for surveillance systems, and you would watch to see if any of these intruders would be in the picture to try to capture them, and you would trigger traps. There were tons of traps that you could trigger, and it would capture them and stop them from kidnapping the girls that were in the house. And it was pretty tame. If you go back and look at it now, it might have been rated at PG if it was a movie. Seriously, it's really not that bad of a game. However, this coupled with Mortal Kombat actually got to the point where the government got involved. There were actual congressional hearings about this stuff because the government decided, well, we need something here because you have actual people in, say, Night Trap or digitized actors in Mortal Kombat. I don't really think I have to explain why Mortal Kombat was looked at kind of sideways by some of the mainstream, by the older audience who looked at it and saw people getting, their spines ripped out and stuff. It was pretty violent. But then they look over at Night Trap and they kind of equated that to the same category, mostly because, according to them, they had scenes of torture and capture and kidnapping and kind of terror. Again, go back and take a look at some of those cutscenes and tell me if that is an M-rated game. Now, Night Trap wasn't a well-reviewed game. A lot of people kind of made fun of it even at the time. They could see that it was kind of a campy, a B-rated movie almost, basically one of those straight-to-TV type movies that you see on the Sci-Fi Channel, kind of. It was that level. But still, it came out, and it started to gain this cult following because during these congressional hearings, Sega actually pulled it from shelves. And there was a famous quote by a Nintendo representative saying, "This will never, never come to the Nintendo family of consoles."
Let me make just a couple of other points. I can't sit here and allow you to be told that somehow the video game business has been transformed today from children to adults. Furthermore, I can't let you sit here and buy this nonsense that this Sega Night Trap game was somehow only meant for adults. The fact of the matter is, this is a copy of the packaging. There was no rating on this game at all when the game was introduced. Small children bought this at Toys R Us, and he knows that as well as I do.
And this quote was made by none other than Howard Lincoln. This was during a 1993 congressional hearings where he said, "Night Trap will never appear on a Nintendo system." That was a straight quote from him. This will never show up on the Super Nintendo, on the Nintendo. The Nintendo was actually still kind of, NES was still kind of getting games here and there during the early 90s. It was not getting it there. The N64, the GameCube, none of that was even in planning, but he was basically saying, never, this will never happen. Well, until 2018, apparently, where it is happening. Now, Sega did eventually put the game back on shelves after, well, a ratings board was formed. As we know now, the ESRB, where we look at our games, E-rated, teen-rated, mature-rated. That's what we needed for everything to kind of go back to status quo. Basically, the government said you have to regulate yourself or we'll regulate for you. It's kind of sounds familiar to the loot box thing, doesn't it? Huh. Yes, this was the last time really that the government got involved to the point where video games, the industry as a whole, had to do something. So they introduced the ratings board. Night Trap re-releases a year later with an MA13 rating. Same as Mortal Kombat from what I remember, so okay, sure. Mortal Kombat seems a little more violent than Night Trap, but again, they kind of cited kidnapping and terror with real people that apparently gave them that rating. Again, TV PG maybe on a terrible Saturday night, straight to TV movie. It really wasn't that bad. But nonetheless, it comes out. A lot of people start picking it up because it had that cult status of you're not allowed to have this. Oh, now you can have it. Everyone bought it pretty much. At least the people who had a Sega CD, I should say. And that is why it is getting re-released now on different platforms. Came out on the PS4 and now it's coming to Nintendo Switch. What's weird about this is where things get a little odd. It's almost like Nintendo had a change of heart kind of out of nowhere. So actually a while ago, last year, I believe, Screaming Villains put out a tweet saying that they were trying to get Night Trap on the Switch. They would have liked to, but Nintendo really wasn't talking to them. They got basically turned down by Nintendo for Night Trap. And now, out of nowhere, like I said, a few days ago, they announced that it is coming to the Nintendo Switch, not only digitally, but Limited Run Games is going to have a full physical edition of this thing, which is really, really weird. I mean, seriously, consider that. Nintendo didn't want it, and now they're approving it. We have games like Galgun 2, something that, yeah, I guess Nintendo would eventually get there, but keep in mind, the developers of that said they didn't even think Nintendo would approve it, and then all of a sudden, Nintendo approves it. And here they are releasing Galgun 2 on the Nintendo Switch. It's gotten even further in that direction with another game called Shin Den I, and that is as adult as it gets. It seems like Nintendo's getting a little more lax, whether it is the younger developers that are in the background that are kind of starting to take over some of those administrative positions. It's hard to say, but this is much different than what we've seen with the more traditionally run Nintendo. Night Trap would not have been there, even last generation. I mean, let's be realistic. Night Trap didn't try to break back on the scene until now. But Nintendo turns them down and then they bring them back and let them release. It does seem like Nintendo is trying to be more for the indie crowd, the cult status crowd, the smaller developers than they ever have before. This, with Night Trap, seems to be more proof of that. And it's fascinating to see a game that Nintendo wanted nothing to do with, 26 years ago. And here they are now printing an entire physical copy, Limited Run Games is, so they're bringing a full copy. They have the ability to do that, and it'll be digital on Nintendo's system. And even the Bunker was an FMV game that I was a little surprised they wanted to do, but there it is. Either way, guys, let me know your thoughts about this whole situation with Night Trap. After hearing Screaming Villains talk about how it probably wasn't going to happen because Nintendo didn't seem interested and turned them down, are you surprised, especially if you've been around since the 90s, when you saw all this unfold where the ratings board was formed because of mostly these two games, Mortal Kombat and Night Trap? Are you surprised to see Nintendo, who put gray blood in Mortal Kombat back in the day, who said it would never happen? Is this one of those things where you're just like, wow, I thought I'd never see the day, and here's Night Trap releasing on a Nintendo platform, the Nintendo Switch, one of their more really modern-looking systems that they've ever released. I mean, think about all the systems they've released, whether it's the Nintendo 64, the GameCube, the Wii. None of these systems have ever looked modern. And then here we are with the Switch, and it is a very modern-looking system. Again, it feels like the younger regime is kind of taking over, but I'm really curious your thoughts about this. Maybe you didn't really think anything about it when Night Trap was announced. You just said, oh, that's cool, Night Trap. Are you a little more interested now to know that it had this much of a history? Thank you so much for watching, guys. Today, I really appreciate it. And make sure you check back out tomorrow morning for Newswave. Make sure you hit the like button, guys. If you enjoyed this video, hit the dislike. If not, leave me your thoughts down below, and I'll see you guys next time.